This is Verdantia, my new 2,000-gallon tropical grasslands vivarium. It's an expansive reconstruction of a tropical savanna. I just built it, and it's stunning, isn't it? It was time for Verdantia's next phase, and this is where things got exciting. It was time for Gaia, the Great Animal Integration Advent, where my chosen set of initial creatures were waiting on the sidelines to be added into the unoccupied lands of our new grasslands. But Mother Nature had a surprise twist. It turns out our grasslands weren't exactly as unoccupied a land as I thought. A ton of insane life was already living inside, from giant parasites to zombies, and so many ant species even I as an ant nerd did not recognize, as well as some dangerous ones. This is the story of the insane pioneering creatures I found residing in my new Giant Grasslands Vivarium, hand-picked by Mother Nature herself, good and bad. Please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon. Welcome to the AC family. Enjoy. It's just the beginning, and Verdantia's grassy world is already beyond anything I ever imagined. This week, despite adding in some initial creatures, which you'll see later, the grasslands were already hosting a ton of life. For instance, you won't believe how many different ant species I found hiding in the Verdantian grass this week. It totally blew my mind. Also, I think you guys will be extremely excited to hear about this particular plot of soil just under the great tree. It's a sacred spot, which serves a very sacred purpose. Buckle in, AC family. This is gonna be a wild one. To your left, you'll notice a small fig tree, but on its central stem is something large, furry, and peculiar. As I looked closer, I couldn't believe my eyes. This was the largest mealybug I've ever seen in my life. Mealybugs are plant insects, which suck up plant juices from host plants. Our other tanks have mealybugs, which the ants milk a sweet secretion from, called honeydew, but this mealybug was enormous, about the size of a fingernail. I wonder what species it is. Furthermore, I wonder if ants could milk honeydew from it. I guess we'll just have to see. Already, Verdantia was an entomological wonder, distinct from my other vivaria. Next in the grass, there was a tiny fly. And another on the glass. And another. This fly had white front legs and looked like it was rubbing them together, scheming. Yes, my precious. Look at the weird movements of its abdomen. There's a tiny moth, a horned treehopper of some kind, and a baby cricket over there by the watering hole. How cute. But not everything in the grasslands were cute and beautiful. And as we've seen many times before, Mother Nature has an ugly side. For what I spotted next made my stomach turn. In this clump of grass, things were about to get real. As I examined the grass, I happened to spot an insect. Hey, it looks like a larva of some kind. Why is it standing so still? But soon, I noticed its swollen body, and the truth of what I was looking at began to sink in. AC family, this larva was not alive. And if it was going to die. I suspect what we're looking at here is a zombie. And in its body is a mass of developing parasites. So there are many parasitic worms, from tapeworms to nematodes, that require specific hosts in order to proceed through their life cycles. If my hunch is correct, those are worm eggs, or larvae, inside that caterpillar. And the caterpillar must have eaten grass contaminated with the eggs. The worms then zombified the caterpillar, taking over its faculties to station itself at the top of some blades of grass, where hopefully some grazer, like my goat, would come along and eat it, where the worms would then be free to break out and grow inside the animal's stomach. I wanted to barf. Ugh, I hate worms. Remind me to never touch grass with my bare hands. From a biological standpoint, though, it's an amazing symbiosis between the grass, the worms, the caterpillar, and the grazing animal. Verdantia was such a crazy place, even now in its infancy. It's also incredible to think that all these creatures were unintentionally imported into the vivarium by way of the decorations. The plants, along with the soil around their roots, were literally transplanted from a grassland field near my home, and driftwood collected from outside. So naturally, as we've seen with my previous vivaria, it brought in with it a ton of life. But this tactic of allowing all decor to become a Trojan horse into our lands does have its drawbacks, as I cannot control when invasive species are imported. And here where I live, there are 5 main invasives I always try to check for with every decor piece before placing them into the tank. Black crazy ants, yellow crazy ants, ghost ants, pharaoh ants, and of course, fire ants. These ant species are global invasives for a reason and can outcompete or annihilate other species in a tank. But even despite quality checks, sometimes they slip between the cracks and enter without me knowing. I spotted 2 ants wandering the soils. Oh, how cute. I hadn't seen this species before, but they look as though they are some type of tetramorium species. And hey, another one was running along the glass. I struggled to have a good look at it as it raced on by, but from what I could see, it was an ant I also hadn't seen before, and I couldn't even begin to guess its genus. Let's call it Mystery Ant A for now. I then spotted 2 more ants running across the bare soil, carrying what looked like food or eggs. Were these the same ants as the tetramorium? They looked like it, but they also could be different. And then, an ominous flash of red caught my eye against the green entanglement of grass. Whoa, wait. Oh no, not good. Is that a fire ant? I wish I had supervision and could zoom in to have a better look at it. Observing things in the grasslands was much more challenging than in the other vivaria. As I looked around, I spotted more of them. Another one was carrying a tiny green insect. It worried me to think that there were fire ants in here. More and more, I began to spot them around the grasslands. I wasn't sure because they looked like fire ants, but somehow didn't. It was time to compare. Behold, Vulcania, the island home of my pet fire ant colony, called the Crimson Knights. Let's feed them and summon the horde. I placed in a pre-crushed cricket, and immediately the fire ants pounced and began to signal with pheromones the presence of food. The fire ants came pouring in from the nest in the mountain. Soon the cricket was covered in a huge swarm of stinging, aggressive, and hungry ants. Okay, now that I could get a better look at them, comparing them with the red ants in our tank, I can see now that the head doesn't look right. as well as the color of the gaster. I know for the unfamiliar eye, these reddish ants may look the same, but for ant nerds, the differences stand out. This is one of the ways ant scientists identify ant species. They look closely at features under a microscope and compare them with existing species keys. And in this case, comparing against my own fire ants, I'm happy to know that these red ants in Verdantia aren't fire ants. They're likely also a species of the Tetramorium genus. But now I was curious as to what ants existed in our grasslands. There seemed to be a few. I knew I would eventually need some better, clearer video of the ants, so I could get my myrmecologist friends to have a look and help me identify them. And the grass was posing a challenge with getting the shots I needed. So it was time to lure the ants out of the long grass. Let's set some traps. A piece of apple here. Honey, placed here on this rock, and some fresh mango juice here along the backsliding door track. I knew these lures would not only draw the ants out of the foliage, but it would also allow them to keep still enough for identification. I could also be able to tell how big the colonies were by how many ants show up. If it was a massive colony, we'll see a swarm. If it was just a small colony, or if the ants were just wandering scouts when they were placed into the tank and don't actually have a colony in here, we'll only see a few feeding. I couldn't wait to see what ants we could find. But while waiting, I had some important order of business to tend to. Gaia 4. The creatures have been waiting patiently. Today, I planned on releasing foundational creatures, not herbivores yet, because I wanted the grass to further establish. Sorry, grasshopper lovers. And not predators yet either. I've learned from my other 3 vivaria that introducing the animals in the ecosystem is best done gradually. And so today, I'm starting with the detritivores. Detritivores are creatures that feed on decaying organic waste and help recycle nutrients in the ecosystem. First up were some of my favorite detritivores. Time to make isopod soup. Common isopods, native to Europe but introduced worldwide. Clown isopods. Zebra isopods. Magic potion isopods. Black and white panda kings. Red and white panda kings. These are cute. Rubber duckies. Little sea isopods. Wild, mandarin, papaya, and whiteout. Powder isopods found worldwide: powder blue, powder orange, whiteout, Oreo crumble, and red koi. And these huge milkback isopods, native to the Mediterranean, but introduced worldwide. I placed the colorful isopod soup into the tank. They instantly dispersed, and I marveled as they scattered excitedly into their new vast and grassy world. Isopods are land crustaceans, and they will help clean up the lands, turning organic waste into fertilizer for the plants. Each one of these isopods will be vital for our grassland soil health. So, what should we name our new isopod crew? AC family, let me know in the comments. They were just so peaceful to look at. I could stare at them all day. Enjoy the grasslands, little ones, and eat all decaying matter to your heart's desire. Next, also quite cute, Orthomorpha coarctata, the long-flanged millipede. These millipedes at first were mostly curled up in tight balls, but soon unraveled and began to slink around. These millipedes can actually excrete a toxic liquid that contains hydrogen cyanide from glands on the sides of the body. When provoked, I never touch them, but they're cool to look at. Just like the isopods, these millipedes will help clean up decaying organic material, and their poop will become plant fertilizer to help our grasslands become more lush. They kind of remind me of toy trains. And finally, probably one of the most important detritivores, but my least favorite. Earthworms. Ugh. My worm phobia is on max dial right now. Watching them squirm around locked my body up, but I knew they absolutely needed to be added in. They squirmed around, struggling to breathe. You see, if these worms dry out, they suffocate, as they require their slimy coating to absorb air and nutrients via diffusion through their skin. All right, hang on, wormies. I dumped the earthworms in, and instantly they began to squirm around in a desperate attempt to get below ground. Now, I believe this species of earthworm is that invasive jumping earthworm species that made headlines in North America a while back. They've become invasive in North America, but they're perfectly native here where I live. And their movement makes my skin crawl. One finally managed to wedge below a rock and get below ground. I began to feel bad for the other worms, as they seemed to struggle getting below ground. So with a pair of some very long tweezers, I helped them get underground. See, I can be nice to my enemies. After all, earthworms produce castings, which are nutrient-rich waste, a powerful natural fertilizer for plants. Even the physical movement of the earthworms through the soil is beneficial. Their burrowing action creates channels that improve soil structure by increasing aeration and drainage, and allowing for better root penetration and water retention for the plants. Many creatures also eat earthworms, so they will be important prey items in the grassland's food web. I was happy to see them disappear below ground though. But as the worms, millipedes, and isopods went off into hiding, it was time to check the traps and see what ants came out. I checked the apple, and of course some detritivores had found it. That's an isopod. And hey, there's a baby millipede, a species of red millipede. Cool to know there were already other millipede species in here. And then came along an ant. Aha! Mystery Ant A. Finally, I could get a good look at it. And yup, no idea what species it was. It kind of reminded me of winter ants from North America, but obviously these weren't those, as I live in the tropics. I'll try to get my myrmecologist buddies to help with identification. But guys, the next ant that showed up made my heart sink. A black crazy ant! No! There were black crazy ants in Verdantia. Okay, let's not panic. Let's see how many show up. After feeding, it left to presumably call its family. Checking the second trap, things weren't as promising. No! A ghost ant! Another invasive. It tapped its abdomen on the ground, drinking up the sweet honey, and left to call its family. I prayed there wouldn't be many. Now checking the third trap was truly eye-opening. A tiny ant was drinking from the mango. This looks like a ghost ant, but was actually not. Again, no idea what species or genus it might be. Let's call it Ant B. Also drinking from the mango was Ant A. Eventually, both Mystery Ant B and A left to call their families. A few minutes later, 1, 2, 3, and 4 Mystery Ant B ants returned. Good to know that this ant had a colony somewhere. Mystery Ant A also returned, but then, bam! A ghost ant with its tapping abdomen discovered the prize. This was not good. The ghost ant left to summon its siblings. Minutes later, 2 ghost ants showed up, and then many, chasing away Mystery Ant B. These ghost ants were not willing to share and were very protective over this food. For me, this was concerning because clearly there was a ghost ant colony somewhere in Verdantia, and it looks like they were very dominant over the natives. This was a sad reality I had to accept in our grasslands. Soon the mango blob was covered in ghost ants. As for the other 2 traps, it looked like the honey had attracted a couple black crazy ants and a lot of ghost ants. And the apple, a black crazy ant, and a small fly. I'm glad I set these bait traps down, as it gave me a good idea as to what the ant geopolitical climate was like in Verdantia. I have found that in my other vivaria, the presence of invasive ants doesn't always necessarily mean ecosystem collapse, and that the best thing I could do is support the native ant population. The black crazy ant and ghost ant population also didn't seem catastrophic in size yet, and if they ever do get to a dangerous population size, I can always pull out my vacuum for an emergency culling. As I watched an isopod chewing on decaying matter, I was happy that for now, it seemed our grasslands was on the right track. It was then that I spotted yet another ant species that looked similar to one of the ants I had seen earlier, but again, different. Kind of looked like a flower ant, but not. Let's call this Mystery Ant C. Overall, I had no idea how many ant species existed in Verdantia, and was pretty sure that there were a ton more creatures that I had yet to discover in the grasslands. It just comes to show you the degree of biodiversity naturally found in grasslands that is often overlooked and completely unfamiliar to nature enthusiasts like me. It made me grateful for having created Verdantia, and excited to uncover more of the amazing biological secrets Mother Nature hides within this rich biome known as grasslands. I'm thrilled to be on this new and exciting biological journey of discovery with all of you of the insane life in Verdantia. Now, over the next few episodes, I will continue introducing more of our various creatures into the grasslands, native ants included. However, I wasn't finished with adding in detritivores. There was one species of detritivore that I've been dying to add in ever since the whole idea of a Grasslands Vivarium came to mind. Which brings me now to our secret spot below the great tree. AC family, this bare spot of soil is a place I wanted to try, something I've been trying to get right for years. A scientific side project that year after year I failed to get right. But something told me that now, here in Verdantia, conditions were perfect to try again. I wanted to try cultivating a very exciting species of creature, a creature that lives below ground and grows a certain fungus and mushroom out in nature that, if we can get right, would make us the first in the world to grow in an indoor setting, should these creatures actually manage to produce these said mushrooms in Verdantia, a scientific breakthrough of epic proportions. AC family, I was ready to try at this plot of bare earth to raise a colony of Macrotermes gilvis, fungus-growing termites, and this time I had a neat plan to do it. Vote in my community tab to affect this story.